Hello, I'm Susan Austin-Crumpton. I am the founder and the executive director of the Estuary here in Nashville, Tennessee, where you all come to visit. And I'm here today to just tell you a little bit about us. I was on some sort of a spiritual journey and some sort of a path in my late 40s, and I had begun following a India guru kind of person named Meher Baba. And I was going to meetings here in Nashville, and I was reading everything he had written. And I made a visit to the Baba Center in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. And I'm sitting in what they called the Lagoon Cabin, which is exactly where Baba used to do his darshans, which is you could make an appointment to go sit with him. He didn't speak at the time. It would just be like sitting with a saint and getting whatever. So I was sitting in the guest chair across from what had been when he was alive. He died in 1969, and this is probably 1989. And I'm sitting in that, and I was in such distress because I had been running a chemical company. I don't know anything about chemistry, and I hated my job. And I'm sitting there in that lagoon cabin, as they call it, could not believe that I was in this place all alone, and I made a decision to do whatever God, Spirit, intuition, Baba asked of me. And my head started spinning like a vertigo attack, and I sat there for just waiting for it to spin down. It felt like I had, you know how when you go swimming and you swing out on a rope over a river, it felt like I turned loose and I didn't know what to expect when I dropped. And at that moment, I finally settled down, my head settled down, I was ready to go. It was 2.5 hours later, and I walked out of that cabin, turned and took a picture, which is still sitting by my chair in my office, and found this spiritual study. Then I was in a bookstore here in Nashville, and I was looking at spiritual inspiration, expecting to find lots of religious books. And there was one book that sort of came off the shelf to me, and it was Barbara Brennan's Hands of Light. In those days, there was no internet. I'm sorry about that. So what you had to do is call the phone number or write a letter. And so I did, to see if I could get into the school. And I had no idea, because that was in New York. I owned a chemical company that I worked in here in Nashville. And I went, I'm going. I'm just going. And I did. And it took 8 years to get trained. And the rest is history. It was a long journey for me, and I was about 50 when I started this, some 30 years ago. Not quite that long. And I had already had 2 careers, that neither one of which I liked. I like to say how long it's been to help those of us who are still in our 30s and 40s and still don't like our jobs. So it is possible for you to move through into adulthood, get your kids reared, and get so bored that you decide you want something that enthuses you, inspires you. And in 1991, I began the Barbara Brennan School of Healing Arts because I was bored in New York City at the time. And I began studying a holistic concept of healing, mind, body, and spirit that I knew very little about. Luckily, I had the resources and the time to get there. For between that and this 4-year study of Kabbalah, it was 8 years of flying back and forth to New York to make this happen. And I just all of a sudden began to get my spiritual life figured out, my personal life figured out, my work life figured out, And the more I learned, the more closer to my spiritual self I felt. And I began teaching others how to go on that journey. We're now an agency with about 20 practitioners. We do holistic health, we do counseling, we do integrative health care, we do integrative counseling, always paying attention to your physical health, your emotional health, and your spiritual health. And today, I am so happy, have no intention of retiring. I will go, and I'm inspired by my people, I'm inspired by you guys. I'm inspired to go and go and go. And remember this, which Kitty told me, what you probably don't remember, from the Baba Center. You know there's plenty of time.
And while you were following that intuition path, did you ever doubt it?
No. I never thought of that. No. No, that's weird, isn't it? No, I never doubted it. I began seeing, I went into an office and began seeing my friends for my homework for these schools I was going to, still working my day job, and being so pleased with every appointment I had. And by the way, I had it all in my head. No calendar, just saying. It can't happen now. And loved every second with every single one of you that are out there watching this today. And I still do today in the same way. The first thing you have to learn to do, and Baba said that, if you want to know God or Spirit, you have got to know yourself. Because if we can imagine ourselves as great bowls waiting for something to be placed in it, just big vessels that are beautiful beyond belief, and we're waiting. But if you've been full of junk, like trauma from the past, like self-doubt, like whatever, you don't have to have that healed. You have to know what's in there. Because nobody gets it all healed. We just know what's in there. Because the first task is receiving it. It's receiving a knowing of who I am. And if your personality is full of junk, nothing can get in. So yes, we all get called. We don't all receive. It's a task. That's why you need the Estuary and the School of Healing Arts. You need to come and get your junk out and known. You don't have to fix it. We're not broken. Good lead. That was great. We are not broken. We were made perfect. And every lesson that we've had that gets in our way, where it was usually a hurt, sometimes an opportunity, sometimes a physical challenge, whatever it is that we feel like in our lifetime that we've had to deal with, is not brokenness, it's opportunity. And it is simply the finding out about yourself, that is sort of fun to do anyway, is all that you need to be listening to and hearing calling. There's a call, and it takes years to find it. The Tibetan book of Living and Dying, I think, says that the first 45 years of your life is just reliving out old karma from past lifetimes. You can believe it or not, that's not the point. The point is, what a good metaphor. So your real life can't start till 45 to 50. So spend your time finding out what you like, who you like, if you like, what you love, it's a journey that your soul longs for you to make. And then you'll hear the call.